Who is this Naftali Bennett, the leader of the Elimination camp in the Israeli parliament? Well, in the current government, he's the education minister. So what has he done in the time that he's been in power? Well, he says this year that studying Judaism and excelling in it is more important to me than studying math and sciences. Okay, but what does that entail? I mean, I thought Israel's supposed to be this, like high-tech, modern society that's striving for academic excellence, but okay, you're saying that Judaism is more important. But what does that mean? What is your Judaism to you? What Judaism are you trying to promote amongst Israeli youth? Well, let's look at what he's done since he's been in power in the last few years as education minister. So we go to the classroom in Tel Aviv suburb, and we see the photos on the wall, and we zoom into this photo, and I'm sure some of you've seen this iconic photo before. And this is the Western Wall, or the Wailing Wall. It's considered to be the holiest place in the Jewish religion. Jewish people pray in the direction of Jerusalem, and in Jerusalem they pray in the direction of the Wailing Wall, and many people pray at the Wailing Wall every day. Is there anything you notice that's a little odd about this photo?
It's missing Al-Aqsa.
Exactly. It's missing. They've completely photoshopped out the Dome of the Rock, the Muslim shrine that is the most beautiful piece of architecture in the entire country. But it's an affront because it's a Muslim shrine and they want it gone. They want it gone from the picture and they want it gone from the Temple Mount itself. And so kids grow up and then now they're past pictures and now they're getting to the point where they can start to read a little bit. So, but it's a combination of pictures and words. So all the students are given, at some schools they're given these journals from the school, and the journals include this comic strip. And again, I've translated some of this into Hebrew to give you a sense of the kinds of messaging that Naftali Bennett wants his students to read. There's a conversation between two young men, one called Jack and one called Jacob, a non-Jewish man and a non-Jewish boy and a Jewish boy. So Jack starts off, "Look, we're the same. Well, I'm a Gentile and you're a Jew. There's no difference between us. Kumbaya, sounds great, right?" But now Jacob comes in. True, we look the same, we even have the same name, as Jack is Jacob. But we're not the same at all, because I have a Torah which guides me to live correctly. A person with Torah and a person without Torah are not the same at all, even if they outwardly appear so. So again, we're advancing beyond the age of comic books, and kids are starting to learn how to read, read real books without any pictures. And so the Ministry of Education has a list of books that they promote to young students to improve their reading skills. And among those books include these, which I've lifted these quotes from them. We're talking about the Arab Gentiles have no desire we have no desire to have them here among us. More holiness has to be brought into the state of Israel until we reach a Torah state, a total theocracy. These are the kinds of messages that he's promoting. This is what kids need. This is how they're learning how to read, right? How to improve their reading skills. So we get a little bit older, and kids start to go through puberty. They start to read novels. And this year we see the Israeli Education Ministry banning books. All right, we're actually at the stage where we're banning books. And they remove texts from recommended reading lists. Why? These two books were removed because in their plot lines they include romantic relationships between Jews and non-Jews. This first book was about a Jewish man and a non-Jewish woman. This book was about a Jewish woman and a non-Jewish man, and that's such an affront to Bennett, who wants to end all miscegenation, so he banned these books. Okay, removed them from schools' reading lists. And then, when we finally get to the later stages of the mandatory education, because Judaism you learn from day one, from nursery, okay? Holocaust you learn about from nursery school. But civics, the idea of what civil rights are and what civic responsibilities are, that you don't get until your final years of high school, when you're practically out the door. So, of course, there is a civics textbook, ostensibly tries to inculcate among students an idea of what it means to be a good member of society. But this year, Bennett wanted to change what it means to be a member of society. And so he completely revamped the textbook, But he revamped it in such a way that the members of the committee were so disgusted with what he'd done that a whole bunch of them resigned en masse until he didn't have enough people on the committee to actually continue their work. People were so ashamed they didn't want their names associated with it, because in the new text that he's published, it frequently stresses the disadvantages of pluralism and the advantages of uniformity. This is the society he's trying to create. And he's doing so. And so this man, a director in the education department, in the education ministry rather, he was horrified, especially after the story of Mohammed Abu Khdeir. This is a young Palestinian teenager who a couple summers ago, he was kidnapped outside by a group of Israeli teens, kidnapped outside his home, beaten, dragged to a forest. They poured gasoline down his throat, and they lit him on fire from the inside out. They burned him to death from the inside out. Now, this was so traumatic, this man was so disgusted by it, he said, okay, we need to combat this phenomenon. There is so much racism in Israeli society, and certainly amongst the youth. We need to try to measure this and work against it and combat it. And so, he did his research, and he created an entire program that would measure the racism amongst the youth and try to combat the racism amongst the youth. Once Bennett got word of it, he shut down the whole program and he fired him from his position. Gave him the heave-ho. And of course, once that happened, he said, things like this happened only in the Middle Ages or in totalitarian states. This was not lost on the Israeli state comptroller, who issued just a few months ago a report about racism in the education system. And what he had to say, he didn't mince any words. He said, I will not gloss over the state of affairs. It shows a grim picture. The state of Israel is doing very little to purge the severe phenomena of racism and hatred among youth. Worse than this, he writes, over years, the Ministry of Education has avoided taking the necessary steps for prevention of racism. So not only is it not doing anything to try to prevent racism, okay, but it's purposefully avoiding doing anything. It's not unconscious, it's conscious. They don't want to stop the racism, they want the racism to continue. It feeds into their efforts to ramp up nationalism so that they'll get more votes of the extreme right-wing power so that they can divert society into this eliminationist camp. Now, with the government not doing anything about it to stop racism, thankfully, some conscientious youth are realizing that we need to step up our game. They need to do something and take it into their own hands. And so this young Palestinian citizen of Israel, I should point out, I know she's light-skinned and blue eyes. Palestinians, like Jews, come in all shapes and flavors and sizes and colors too. In any case, this young Arab citizen of Israel, Valerie, she got together with a Jewish citizen and a young friend of hers who was Jewish, and the two of them together, they went on a workshop where they learned about racism and different communities and how to advance tolerance and how to combat, race hatred. And they put together a workshop for their fellow students. They thought, you come to my school, I come to your school, we'll do a conversation. We'll be able to at least do our small part to try to improve the situation on the ground. But when she wanted to come to the school to present what she'd put together, the principal at the school wouldn't even let her in the door. And when asked, she said, I don't want my students to be in communication with that sector. They wouldn't even let an Arab girl walk into this school. They don't want them to even speak to Arabs.